You want to go
We're
ahead?
ready.
Just keep rolling?
We're ready.
Okie doke.
Okay.
Thanks.
This is Janet again, and I'm back. And I don't see my screen, but I'm assuming everybody can see me. I'd like to welcome our next panelists, Diana and Leroy. Leroy Allala is the president and chief executive officer of Sister Cities International. And Sister Cities International was founded by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in 1956. Sister Cities International serves as the national organization overseeing sister city partnerships in over 1,800 communities in 138 countries. Mr. Allala is a globally recognized civic business and community leader with a depth of executive leadership and expertise in corporate, international, and governmental relations, board development, and program management. Diana Price is the Central Library Manager at Alexandria Library in Alexandria, Virginia, and co-chair of the IRT Sister Libraries Committee. She also serves on Alexandria City's Sister Cities Committee and has begun a Sister Libraries partnership with the Public Library of Dundee, Scotland, one of Alexandria's sister cities. So like Diana, I am involved with IRRT and the sister libraries, and I'm also active within Sister Cities International, serving as a co-chair of the Denver Sister Cities Axum Ethiopia Committee. So it's my hope that today, with the two presentations together, that Sister Cities International and ALA Sister Libraries can collaborate on joint projects, such as publishing a Sister Libraries Committee within the Sister Cities suite of toolkits. So first we'll welcome Leroy.
My name is Diana Price, and I am the Central Library Manager with Alexandria Library. We are just outside of DC, and today I'm going to be talking about our new sister library partnership that we have with Dundee, Scotland. So previous to our Sister Libraries partnership, we have had a Sister Cities relationship with Dundee, Scotland. Alexandria is also officially Sister Cities with Caen, France, Helsingborg, Sweden, and Gyumri, Armenia. But I'm on the committee and that focuses mainly on Dundee. So we wanted to build, or I wanted to build on our Sister Cities relationship, which has been very fruitful for us. So the first thing I did, as Carol said, it started with an email. All I did was I went to the Dundee website and I sent them a general email that just said, hi, we're Sister Cities partners already. Would the library like to also do some Sister Libraries programming? And I got a wonderful email back from librarians in Dundee who were very excited about starting a partnership with us. The first thing we did was have a Zoom meeting with multiple staff from every library. We had children's staff and adult staff on the call so we could all kind of brainstorm and collaborate together. Our first meeting was mainly just about what we were looking for in a partnership and kind of some basic ideas about where we might want to go with the programming. And then we had a follow-up meeting with a bunch more very specific program plans to kind of pick what we wanted to start with first. So we found that obviously virtual programming was a great fit for us. Both of us have pretty much zero budget for this partnership, or a very low budget. So we felt that virtual programming was a good place to start. Fortunately, Alexandria Library has a subscription to Zoom. So we were able to host all of our virtual programs. Here at Alexandria Library, we also have been doing virtual programs ourselves just within our community. We found specifically adult virtual programs during lunch breaks have been really popular for people to tune in at work. So we started brainstorming some ideas, and we hosted our first program last year in March. I just wanted to also share quickly some of our sister cities activities that we were building on with the Sister Library Partnership. The biggest one, I guess the most visible one, is our Christmas Walk Parade. Every year, Alexandria hosts the Scottish Christmas Walk Parade, and we invite the Lord and Lady Provost from Dundee to join us. They were unable to come for a few years due to COVID, but this past year, Lord Provost, as you can see in the middle with the glorious chain, and his wife were able to join us for the Christmas Walk Parade. Alexandria was co-founded by John Carlisle, who is Scottish, hence our very Scottish connection. And a lot of Scottish Americans march in the parade wearing their full clan regalia. It's a very exciting event. The Sister Cities Committee also does a whiskey tasting program every year, which is to raise money for Sister Cities activities, which still primarily involve sending people back and forth. So that does require some funding. One of our Sister Cities committee members is also a member of the Alexandria Sailing Club, and she has made a connection with the Sailing Club in Dundee, and they've exchanged, I think it's called burgies, which are the little flags on their ships. So they're really excited. They did an official exchange, and now they're hanging each other's burgies in their sailing clubhouses. And in the past, pre-COVID, Alexandria Sister Cities would host exchange students, Alexandria students going to Scotland, and vice versa. Oh no, I think my screen has frozen. There we go. So our first Sister Libraries program, I'm sure I'm going to get those two mixed up. So pardon me if I say Sister Cities and I mean Sister Libraries or vice versa. But our first program was a book club. We got this idea because both Alexandria and Dundee already do book clubs. It seemed like a natural program to do first. Also, it didn't require a lot of preparation. We really wanted to test the waters about how well this would go with technology, with participation and excitement on both ends. So we decided to do what we decided to call it Transatlantic Book Club. And a live Zoom. It's lunchtime for us in Alexandria and around dinner time for those in Scotland. The Dundee librarians chose our first book, which is a Scottish classic called The White Bird Passes by Jessie Kesson. After we chose this book and started advertising, we realized it's not really in print in America. So that's something we definitely are thinking about moving forward. But we did use some friends' funds to buy some books to have available to everyone that was participating in Alexandria, so they wouldn't have a problem getting the book. We had a good participation for this program. Most of our participants were in Scotland, and our Scottish librarian partners led the discussion, but it did go really well, and there was really positive feedback from both our Dundee participants and Alexandrian participants. Our second Transatlantic Book Club was a little later around Christmas of last year, and we decided to switch things up a little bit to make it easier for participants in both areas to receive what we were reading. We decided to do a short story. This was based on our Scottish partner, Katie. She runs a very successful short story book club in Dundee. So we were able to send a PDF of the story. We read A Christmas Memory by Truman Capote to all of our registrants. We had 20 participants from Dundee and Alexandria show up, and they really loved the short story format. It fit into a lot of people's busy schedules, and they didn't have to worry about trying to find a copy. It was almost too many participants to have a good discussion, but it went very well. And again, we had really solid feedback about having this book club and discussing these works with people from across the pond. Both Scottish and American participants really loved meeting new people from our sister city and being able to join in a really good discussion with them. We also switched things up. In addition to our Transatlantic Book Club, we're very fortunate that in Dundee, their local history librarian is also a professional storyteller. And her name is Dr. Erin Farley, and she has a published book called Angus Folktales. So she very graciously joined us for a fantastic presentation where she told stories and folktales from the Dundee area of Scotland. This was extremely popular. Americans love listening to Scottish accents, and of course, as a professional storyteller, she was tremendous. And we had extremely good feedback for this program. Again, we've done all of these via Zoom, lunchtime for Alexandria, dinner time for Scotland, and that seems to have worked really well for us. We had 22 live Zoom participants, and then we put it up on YouTube for a few weeks, and we got many more. And I got lots of emails from very excited participants who really enjoyed this program, as did I. I feel very fortunate to be able to run the Zoom on these and get to join in all of them. So we have some things coming up. We are working on Transatlantic Book Club number 3. Alexandria does a program called All Alexandria Reads, which is our one book, one city program. And our adult fiction selection for this year is Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. This time we did check to make sure this book was available easily in print in both Scotland and Alexandria. And so we'll be doing our next Transatlantic Book Club reading this book, which we're really excited about. We have a couple selections for our program, and we let the Scottish librarians choose which one they thought would they liked the most and they thought would be most successful. So we're really excited about this. This is coming up in April. We're also working, we have a local history department here at Alexandria, just like Dundee does in Scotland. So we're working on a shared program on the transatlantic slave trade in both cities. Very, I guess, twinning-like, we recently opened a historical walk commemorating African Americans' achievements and for our city. And Dundee opened a walk called Breaking the Chains on their history with the transatlantic slave trade. So we thought this would be a really great way to bring this history to light, which has often been overlooked, and be able to kind of highlight our shared history. We have not yet done any children's programs with Dundee, but we're really excited to get this started this year as well. We're hoping to do some co-presented Zoom story times with librarians from Scotland and Alexandria reading stories for the kids. We also hope to do some virtual events for older kids. We here at Alexandria have been doing virtual events for all ages, but that's not something Dundee has been doing. They didn't have access to the Zoom technology, so they kind of just paused for COVID and then got started back in person. So we're still kind of working out how this would work, especially on their end, but we're really hoping that this is something that we can get started as well, because I think it'd be really fun for the kids to meet new friends in Scotland. So that's just a brief overview of our program. One great thing I'll mention about being both on sister libraries and sister cities is I do think they just go naturally together. The Sister Cities Committee has been kind of co-sponsoring and helping to advertise all of the sister libraries programs that we have been doing. Members of Sister Cities have been coming to the programs as well. Also, when we're planning new Sister Cities events, it just, I think, really helps to be part of the library. For instance, one of our other branches did a book talk with an author who wrote a book about Scottish history in Alexandria. And someone from the Sister Cities was like, oh, this book would go great for us. And I was like, I can get her contact because I know the librarian who did that, and we'd love to host another program. We have a lot of resources at the library that our Sister Cities Committee doesn't have, like Zoom. We have meeting rooms. We have staff to host programs. We have a small friends budget for to buy books or buy refreshments. So I think that together we've really been able to greatly increase the number of programs we're doing with Dundee, make them available to a lot more people, because via Zoom, kind of anyone can come, as opposed to choosing a small group to send over and vice versa. And I think it's really strengthened our partnership. I saw a previous question asking how to get admin on board with this. We started really small, which was we still don't have a formal partnership. And the way we approached it was, let's just chat and maybe we can do a program and see how it goes. And kind of keeping it very low key really helped. And then once that program was successful, it was natural to do another one and then to share this with admin. And we said, oh, look how successful this is. Let's keep it going. And they were really excited about that. But I think it was also easier just to have more of an informal partnership in a way, just connecting librarian to librarian and just see how it goes. I think both of us were really excited just to try and without the stress of having this big commitment, just to see what was going and then just to brainstorm. So that's also maybe a possibility if you're kind of trying to dip your foot into a sister library partnership. Maybe don't even start with a partnership, just start with a program. And if it's successful, build from there.
Okay, thank you, Diana. Leroy, let's see if we can give it another shot. I know that you've been trying a couple things on your presentation. No?
All right.
There you are. Yay.
Okay. I'm on video on my laptop and on my phone with audio.
Okay.
So,
Just a second. Carol, is there a way of showing both his screens? Because he's got two different tiles. And I think his telephone tile just has his name.
Well, I'm going to start by making his second tile, his phone tile, a co-host,
Okay.
but I'm not sure.
and maybe if I share a screen from my laptop, it'll.
Yep, that should work.
Let's try that.
This is
Yes.
like going like this. Great.
Okay, does that work?
Yes.
All right. Hopefully it's not too confusing. So, well, thank you everybody for your patience, and I'm really pleased to be here. I'm really happy to be part of today's program. As Janet mentioned, I'm the president and CEO of Sister Cities International. I'm based in Washington, D.C., and I've been here in this role for about 3 years now. But prior to being here in D.C., I had led our Sister City program in the city of Chicago for about 12 years. I worked under 3 different mayors and worked within the city to help expand our global presence, and worked with a number of our city agencies, including our Chicago Public Libraries. So a lot of the comments and questions that have been popping up throughout today's program, some of them I'm familiar with those challenges and dealing with them at the local level when I was in Chicago, but there's definitely a lot of great ideas and a lot of great activities that have already been taking place across the network. So I commend you for all of your work to date with sister libraries and just building these relationships. So I think the common theme that I've heard across the presentations today is just, communication is key, and you never know with just having a conversation where that might lead to. So I'll go through a few of my slides here, and I think some of this might be already a little bit, of information you might have figured out already from today's programs. But Janet mentioned that we were founded in 1956 by President Eisenhower. And one of the things that really helped to spark the Sister City program was World War II. After World War II, President Eisenhower said, well, obviously our governments at the national level are not doing as great of a job at achieving peace. So let's try and put the power in our private citizens and promote citizen diplomacy to really help create these bonds between people across the globe, help promote peace, mutual understanding, friendships, it really is that people to people connection that so many of you have already highlighted in your local cities and programs that really help to help our communities better understand people and communities around the globe. So we've seen some really great, successful sister city programs globally, achieve these connections and these bonds of friendship that are built between our communities. They continue to flourish and grow from year to year, just as many of your sister library programs have continued to grow and flourish. One thing that I always say with regards to sister cities and citizen diplomacy is that there really isn't just one right solution. There is no really right or wrong solution to building a sister city partnership. And it's not just a connection between city governments or schools or libraries. It really is any way you can connect two cities that falls under the umbrella of sister cities. So citizen diplomats can be students, teachers, athletes, artists, our business people, our mayors, our government officials. So it really is such a diverse program that when I talk with cities around the US about building a sister city program, and make sure that they understand that there really is no right or wrong way to build that program. Many communities start with just connecting their schools and connecting students. A lot of sister city programs have been more humanitarian based, where a US community will donate an old ambulance or a fire engine to a sister city community. There have been so many different types of partnerships that have been created by private citizens and local communities. So you'll see on these slides, that primarily the sister city partnerships are between two cities, and they're normally signed between two mayors. But we do have sister county relationships, sister state relationships. I've seen sister rivers, sister airports. We had in Chicago, sometimes we were approached by a city that was seeking a sister city partnership. And maybe there wasn't that history of exchanges that warranted a full out sister city partnership. So we would start with a friendship agreement, or we would look at where we had something in common, and sister airports were one of those areas that we actually had sister airports with. I think it was Belgrade, with Abu Dhabi, with a few different cities where our aviation officials would share best practices and learn from each other, just as it related to our airports. So sister libraries is definitely something where there can be great exchanges, great communications between communities. It's a great way to connect our cities. I think when we look at libraries, especially public libraries, we're there to help serve and support our communities and our public citizens. Our sister city programs are really led on the ground by private citizens and members of your community. So when you look at how do you start a sister city program, or who should be engaged, it is those agreements that are signed by the mayors, but it's the community that really helps bring it to the point where you can have that sister city agreement. It's the community members that are so proud of their local cities and also of and many times their heritage or where they're from. They want to connect those two cities. They're the ones that really help to build those connections and those bonds. So I see a lot of great work that is done at that private citizen level. So I encourage you to engage your local communities, your local citizens, to help support your interests in connecting with libraries around the globe. And I excuse myself, I've been a little bit ill this week, so I'm getting over something here, so I've got a little bit of a dry throat here. So again, there's really no one path to developing the Sister City Partnership. Here are some of the trends that we've seen. We've seen areas of economic development or industries. One thing that communities here in the US in particular these days, they're looking at ways to develop economic development, to bring jobs into your communities. So attracting foreign investment into your communities is a great way to help develop a sister city relationship or utilize your sister city relationship to help spark economic development. We've had a lot of cities that as they're promoting themselves as a global destination for business, or maybe a great destination for a foreign company to consider their US base, they utilize their sister city connections as a way to really help identify ways that they can connect with businesses or communities internationally. The cities have in many cases worked to build these relationships for 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So those relationships are deep connections that many communities have with international cities. So whether it's utilizing it for economic development or building sister school relationships, doing student soccer exchanges, or in this case, libraries, there's a long history of partnership between many communities. So you don't really necessarily need to start from scratch. If you're looking to develop a new sister library program, or looking at where you might want to start in terms of identifying a region around the globe, you might want to take a look at where you currently have sister cities, what connections currently exist within your communities. We offer at Sister Cities International what we call our matchmaking process. It's our city connection marketplace. We receive requests from cities around the globe that want to find a sister city partnership here in the US, or US cities looking for global partnerships. So we maintain a database and sort of this matchmaking portal where we try and provide information on cities that are currently looking for global partners. So if that's something that your community is interested in, we're happy to talk with you a little bit more closely on that sense. In terms of formalizing these agreements, what we always say is after these two cities connect, we can help communities draw up an agreement. Sometimes sister cities will come to the table and they'll present a 20-page contract per se that they want to propose, and with the direct deliverables. One thing that we always encourage cities to do is maybe look at a broader relationship that doesn't have those specific deliverables, that allows the communities to go into different directions, whether it be sister libraries or sister schools or sister airports. It leaves the door open to connecting in a number of areas. And you'll see as you start to do these exchanges, these in-person exchanges, sometimes your city or your sister city will come to the table with areas of interest that they want to dive into, whether it's how a city manages their public transportation or water management. But with our sister city programs, we always encourage our communities to be a bit flexible in how they want to work and link with their communities or with their sister city partners. And libraries is definitely an area where there are a lot of opportunities to connect with sister city partnerships. So I talked a little bit about some of these areas that exchanges tend to fall in, whether it's cultural exchanges around the arts and music. We see a lot of programs host musicians and artists from global symphonies. With Chicago, when I was there, we would partner with our Chicago Symphony Orchestra. They would do a few international trips each year, and we would connect with them to partner around their international visits to help promote the city of Chicago and the cultural connections that could exist between our cities. Youth and education is a big part of I think why a lot of private citizens get engaged initially in sister city partnerships, connecting students, or whether it's serving as a host family initially, or connecting schools. I think that's an area that a lot of folks are very passionate about. I think this has a great direct link to our sister library type of an initiative. And we've seen areas that cities have connected even more recently. I think I have some slides in this deck that highlight a recent program we just did in Cape Town, South Africa. So I'll fast forward to those, but I talked a little bit about economic partnerships and the municipal exchanges, and I think you've heard from some of the others about their programs. This is an example of a sister city agreement. This one is between Fort Worth, Texas and Nimes, France. It was just a couple of years ago, but you can see it's a pretty brief document, and it allows, this one highlights cultural, schools, sports teams, a number of areas for interaction. But going a little bit closer to the sister libraries, I did want to highlight one of our recent programs. Libraries and Literacy campaign was a program that we've worked on nationally here out of Washington, D.C. with our Africa sister cities in particular. So we were just last week in Cape Town, South Africa. We had about 500 people attend a Sister City Africa Summit in Cape Town. And of the 500, I'd say about 300 were from the US. And we were promoting what we were calling our Libraries and Literacy campaign. And we asked our sister city programs from across the US to donate books for 5 different communities in Cape Town. And we had over 5,000 books that were donated from our sister city members that we were able to present during our conference in Cape Town to different libraries at schools in 5 townships, which are the lower income areas of Cape Town. And it was a great initiative, a great way for sister cities to show support for reading and literacy. There were a number of our sister city officials that went out to the schools and read to students. They've been working on this campaign for a number of years, so it was great to see this in particular happen in person in Cape Town. We even did at the end of our conference a brainstorming session to talk about some of the next steps and where we want our libraries and literacy campaign to go, and how we can encourage more US communities to connect with, in this case, Africa in particular, and libraries and literacy programs to promote opportunities within our sister city network. So those are just some examples of the sister city opportunities that can exist, or ways that you can engage around sister libraries. I did hear earlier, Dr. Lau had talked about some of the partnerships between California and Baja California. We were just recently also in San Diego and Tijuana. They're sister cities, and they do a lot around education. I know they're gearing up in 2024 to help support the World Design Capital designation that the region as a whole have been designated World Design Capital. So they're working with schools and businesses and all sorts of resources within their communities to develop links. I think libraries could definitely be a part of something like that. We've also done a lot of work with El Paso and Juarez on the border as well, which is another area that he mentioned. And I know there's so many school exchanges that exist between those communities, but there's just an endless really opportunity of ways to connect. We used to also use our libraries in Chicago as a way to highlight to foreign delegations the innovative technologies that are being used in libraries and the innovative programs that libraries are rolling out within their communities. I think that's something that when we had visiting officials, whether they were mayors or ambassadors, they really welcome the opportunity to hear about some of these creative programs that are happening at the local level. So I encourage you, as you're working with your local officials, to also engage with your consular corps, the consul generals, if you have consulates in your hometowns or the closest consulates, to really engage them as well, because they'll be great resources for you to help connect with more international communities. And they can also help with any of the questions you might have before going to a sister library or a sister city in terms of the protocols or the questions you might have in terms of communication. Consulates have been a great resource for some of our sister cities that have the challenges with language and drafting letters or communications. Some of our consulates have been really helpful with that, as are on the ground volunteers as well. So, finally, I'll mention too, I think Diana Price mentioned that times the programs can be really active, but then they have their dormant periods. And I always encourage cities, I'm like, there's nothing wrong with having that dormant period, because it allows you to work on some of the other initiatives, and it allows you to help build up that excitement about the next program as well. So these sister cities do go through cycles where you have your really active periods and then your slow periods. And a lot of that is also because so many are volunteer driven, and so your volunteers need a little bit of time to tend to some of their other responsibilities too. So, but don't let that discourage you with building these partnerships. So I'll pause there, but I'm happy to answer any questions as well.
Thank you so much, Leroy. That was really informative, as all the talks have been. Super to hear about everything that Sister Cities is doing. And I'm already thinking of some cities I want to connect, so not just libraries. We had one question about Sister Cities taking the lead in expanding the Libraries and Literacy Project. Or the question is, do you see Sister Cities International taking the lead in expanding the Libraries and Literacy Project? And the comment is, it would be a good way to start a larger cooperation between libraries and sister cities.
Yeah, actually, with as it relates to Africa in particular, we will be taking the lead as it relates to the Libraries and Literacy Initiative. We have a goal right now over the next 5 years to develop 500 new sister city partnerships between the U.S. and Africa. It's been an area that has been a bit underrepresented in terms of sister city partnerships. So it's an area that we're working with many of the African ambassadors based here in Washington, D.C., and our network of U.S. embassies and consulates across the continent to identify opportunities to connect U.S. and African sister cities. And our Libraries and Literacy Initiative will be playing a role in that as well, because we do see, as it relates to literacy and education and youth, those are key areas that many of our U.S. communities are wanting to focus on when connecting with an African sister city in particular. We haven't talked yet about how we would roll that out to more of a global sister city audience. We're starting to focus on the U.S. Africa partnerships first, but I would definitely see this also being utilized across our network globally.
Did you say 500 new partnerships
um,
over the next 5 years?
Yes, 500 new partnerships in 5 years.
100 a year, that's a lot. What,
It's a
2
lot,
a
it's an
week?
ambitious goal, but we're up to the challenge.
I'm glad to hear it. There's also been some interest in your slideshow, and we're wondering if you would share your PowerPoint. I think if you could share it with Carol, then she can get it out to the participants. Is that possible?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
I'll forward it to Carol. Right now, too.
Fabulous. Okay. We've got a couple of questions for Diana, and then I've got one more for you, Leroy. Let's see, the first question, let me find it again. Oh, yeah, so somebody was wondering, Diana, if you would share what a book club Zoom session covers. Do you have pre-written questions? How does it work?
Yes, we've been really fortunate that our partner librarian, Katie in Dundee, is excellent at leading book clubs. So she does come with prepared questions to lead the conversation, but she is also really skilled at kind of going where people's chatting takes them and just kind of prompting things on. So she would open with some background information on the book and the author, about when the book was written, the author's life. With A Christmas Memory, it's autobiographical. So she did open with information about Truman Capote's life, and then she had some discussion questions already prepared to kind of lead the discussion. Sometimes participants would have other questions or kind of start asking each other discussion questions. I noticed this in the text. Did you do as well? So it wasn't, it was somewhat organic, but also she was really good, or is really good, at carrying it through the whole time and really allowing people to participate. We have thus far not had too many participants, so everyone has a chance to chat during the hour. I do think if this program grows to more than around the 20 participants we have, we might do breakout rooms where each room would have a librarian to lead the discussion, just so people have more of a chance to chat.
Yes, I've attended a couple of online book clubs for the Folger Library in Washington, D.C. And one was really good and the other wasn't good. I really think it's important to have a librarian there leading it, because otherwise people will talk for a long time. And then even if you're in a breakout room, you don't get to participate very much. So, well, I hope it gets so big that you have to have breakout rooms. It sounds really fun, and I want to, maybe I'll join, even though I'm not in Dundee.
Yes, that's okay. Everyone can join.
Yeah, why not? That's awesome. Thank you. There was another question about whether any of your librarians, the Alexandria librarians or the Dundee librarians, have been able to travel between countries to visit each other in person. Or is it all
Not yet. Not yet. We began our partnership, I think I reached out in October or November of 2021. So it's still rather new. I have been to Scotland, but unfortunately I have not yet been to Dundee. I am hoping maybe this year, if not this year, next year, to travel to Dundee. And we've definitely invited them to come and visit us. In addition to being a member of Sister Cities and Sister Libraries, I'm a member of our Royal Scottish dance group in the Washington, D.C. area. And a lot of those members are obviously very interested in Scotland and have been joining our programs as well. And we hold big dances, and people are used to opening their homes to strangers to come to dance. So many have expressed that they would be happy to open their homes to the librarians from Scotland should they be able to make it to the United States, which is very kind.
That's fun. Are you Scottish?
I am not Scottish. I found my dad was also very interested in Scotland. I found for him doing genealogy one Scottish relation back in the 1500s. He was very excited, but I think we're mostly Welsh.
That's funny. But you can dance like a Scot. That's important. Let's see, and I think one more question from you. The question is, did the Alexandria Sister Cities group welcome your reaching out to your Scottish contact?
Yes, they were really excited. I think they really were looking when I joined. I only joined the Sister Cities Committee in June of 2021, so I'm also rather new to that. But previously, they were looking to expand the number of events they did. I think they do every year their signature whiskey tasting event, and would work on exchanges of people back and forth, but they were really looking for a way to expand the number of events that they did every year. So they were really thrilled that I joined the committee and came with a lot of the resources and knowledge that working at the library provides me.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, well, like I said, I'm really interested in your book club, so you might see me again. Thanks. And then Leroy, I've got another question for you. On one of your slides, you talked about the National League of Cities. What's the difference between the National League of Cities and Sister Cities International?
Sure. The National League of Cities is it doesn't really necessarily have a international arm to it right now. And it's an association of elected officials. So it can be mayors, it can be city council members, county officials. There's similarly a U.S. Conference of Mayors and National Association of County Executives. Some of those other organizations have an international arm to their organizations, but the National League of City does not currently. It's something that on the slide it mentioned that we kind of grew out of the NLC. In more recent years, we do have an MOU or a partnership with NLC where we serve as sort of an unofficial international arm for the organization. So during their annual conference, we usually have an international panel where we can highlight some work that cities are doing internationally, or international officials will participate on those panels. And we usually have a booth during their expo. So that's usually at their fall annual conference. But we do work closely with a lot of the city type or government official agencies. And one thing that I was going to point out that's, excuse me, that's important sometimes is as you have new elected officials, whether it's a new mayor or city council members, either in your city or in your sister city, sometimes it's a good idea just to send them a note with a little bit of background on the exchanges that you have had, whether it's related to sister libraries or dance troupe or whatever it might be, because as the new officials come in, they might not know the history of the partnership between your cities. So I get calls from mayors that will say, hey, I just recently was elected and took office, and I came into my office and I have a stack of files here labeled Sister Cities. Can you tell me a little bit more about what this program is and what do I need to do? But I do think that elected officials and communities are more open to connecting globally. They do understand we're a global society now, global world. So we have to have these connections and these grassroots efforts, are great ways to connect our communities. So just a key point whether it's connecting with your mayors or city council members, or different boards, community boards. If there's an opportunity to highlight or talk about the programs or the exchanges you're doing with libraries, you never know who will want to sign up to join your local book club, or or support one of your initiatives with funding or other resources as well.
Thank you. I have just, that made me think of one more question about the National League of Cities, or just a clarifying question. You said it's mostly elected officials, so it doesn't have a citizen diplomacy aspect to it the same way that Sister Cities does.
No, not the same way that Sister Cities does. Their members are cities, and the members that attend their meetings are elected officials primarily. I think sometimes it can be the appointed commissioner of housing or something like that, but they're writing more reports and helping with lobbying our U.S. government for issues that directly affect cities. So again, they haven't really had in recent years an international arm to the National League of Cities, but their members are elected officials and cities.
Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for all your great presentations and all this information. I've been writing as fast as I could when I had my screen off, so that I could try to remember everything. All this will be captured and released as a recording in a couple weeks for all participants. So don't worry if you did miss something, you'll be able